Well, good morning. I feel pretty well, but unfortunately I can't join you because of what the regulations are. So again, we are moving exam to next week because it's my understanding everybody wanted to, do more work, practice. That's a good thing. So we continue with the same homework-based review, and I just wanted to start you up on that review. I got this over here, and I think we should probably start. So this is homework, and as you know, if you check the practices, it follows the practices. And of course, if you check the lecture notes, it follows the lecture notes. And in fact, this copies those homework assignments from the lecture notes. The reason is when you go through lecture notes, it would be easier to tell that it relates to those homework problems. So, and we may open lecture notes to seek for answers, because you need to approach it as a review, and that means, what if you have similar question on the exam? So let's start with something around here with the box plots. That was the last thing we actually didn't finish, but we finished it virtually last class. And so, and by the way, if you uncertain, okay, let me go on here. You can always, and remember, you can use lecture notes on tests and quizzes. And so that's the last one. It's posted, it's annotated, and it tells you everything about box plots. You see, it's a little slow, and that's why I always say download it, and it will be easier to navigate it through. And so, of course, it's the last question on homework, will be the last question on test, and that's how we'll look things up. And so those are the box plots. Those are vertical box plots. In practice, we have vertical. It doesn't make any difference. Those are horizontal. It's just the way you graph them. And so this shows everything about box plots, that little scroll. And as I go to do this homework question, list the regions for highest to lowest median. And so this is highest. So that's the median, yes. And so I'll write m equals 16. And instead of listing, I'll just put the medians. And this one, m equals 12. And this one, m equals 14. And this is m equals 13. And now, what's the lowest interquartile range? Now, again, you don't need to memorize those things. You see, it all tells you the interquartile range, and everything is on that picture. And so this is the highest, because it's the longest piece, and this is the smallest. And the rest you can decide for yourself. So again, let's say you're still wondering, and maybe you forgot that what I was saying, and you look at it again. You can always look 3.63. So go to Talon, course materials, and this is homework. In solution mail chapter 3. Again, it's better to download it, but 3.63 is right here, and here we got the answers. So now you can copy them into that page, just as I'm doing, but it's better to show your work just as I do. Why? Because Don't throw away when you follow me. If you follow me right now, and I suggest you do, then that means you are adding to your homework. Some of you have done a few homework pieces, and usually when I'm in class, I always start with catching up and seeing like who needs some specific homework questions so that you can submit your homework and get the points for doing homework. Homework is extra credit. Now, just for being in class, and Gus will collect your names, you get another 5 points of extra credit added to your homework. So it's extra credit on top of extra credit. In any event, when I am done with this video, you may have, some of you may have specific questions, and you're welcome to ask Gus or navigate through the solutions and see, okay, where we're at on the solution manual. Oh, it's okay, we can, yes, I got it, it's over here. And so then you can, work on your answers using solution manual. So anyway, let's go back and where we're at here, did I address which region has the least amount of variability? And that would be Northeast, smallest RQR, just as I pointed out. And so you can, I hope I kind of started you up well and you can finish. And why it's better measure, yes, I still want to, because that's very important, it's gonna matter on the exam, because better measure because it is skewed. And those distributions are all skewed. Well, not all. This one is almost symmetric. But those are all skewed because they are stretched. Now that has an outlier, and it's a different question. And I don't know if that's an outlier. I'm sorry. Maybe let me try to erase it. Maybe that was something I wrote. No, it doesn't erase. So it is. Well, if it's part of the graph, it's not my writing. That's an outlier. But again, outlier does not necessarily imply skewedness. But skewedness is when it's kind of stretched. You see, like this is stretched, and the arm is longer, and this is kind of not symmetric, short, long. Now, sometimes it's not really obvious which is skewed. Now, this is skewed because of kind of this is much longer, but the arm goes the other way. Sometimes it's a little confusing. We're not going to have those confusing examples on tests, and it's going to be straightforward. So anyway, describe the shape of the distribution, skewed left, oh, sorry, skewed right. And what is measure of center and spread should be used. Again, just imagine you're doing it on the exam. So you'd go to lecture notes and you'll look somewhere around here and check this out. Mean and standard deviation used to report symmetric, and you should use median and IQR. And so again, just imagining you doing a test, you even if you forgot that, you could have found correct answer. And so we're saying median and IQR. One other thing I really want to touch on is using thinking of z-scores and using empirical rule, because this involves like, for example, this would be empirical rule. Now on test, it's gonna tell you use empirical rule, because sometimes people have problem identifying that it's empirical rule. Now for that, and this is where you may want to ask Gus to pause the video, because I really want everybody to go to our calculator, course materials, and download the calculator. Now, if by now if by now you don't have figured out your best way of technology, let's say you're not certain, like it's cell phone or anything, or you, again, I usually help people out, but I can't help you right now because I'm here. Then you need to take laptop from computer card, because it has Excel, everything is set up. You don't need to spend time right now to figure out what will and what will not work. Now, slowly you'll get accustomed to that, and some of you will decide, oh, I really like run it on my cell phone, because you can run it on your cell phone, and then you can use cell phone hand has a very intuitive hand feel of a calculator. And I have a few people who prefer cell phone to run the technology. That's not a problem. So you could do that. So we're doing empirical rule, and let's look at our. So everybody needs to get this ready. And so I am finding out that the mean is 35.9 and standard deviation is 11.6. So 35.9 and 11.6. And now that gives you plus minus standard deviation range. In fact, if you double click, it will tell you what we do. Subtracting, you can look at the formulas. They're very simple. And this is 2. This is adding standard deviation. This is 2 standard deviations. And again, so we'll go back here. Come on. Have trouble dragging it, yes? So what percentage between 12.7, well, let's collapse it a little more so that we see everything. Between 12.7 and 59.1, yes, and so when I see this, and I see this, this is plus minus 2 standard deviations. So 2 standard deviations. And 2 standard deviations, once again, if you reach into the lecture notes, and now that should be, okay, we can close this. And that should be, and again, it's better if you have all lecture notes downloaded even before the start of the exam. You see how much time I'm spending looking things up in the lecture notes. And empirical rule is here. It's better to download everything, but I just don't want to spend. I mean, it's not that important at this point. But if I was doing exam, I would download it. And so here is our empirical rule. 2 standard deviations is 95%. So now I can answer that question. What percentage? 95%. So similarly, 24.3, this is 1 standard deviation. That would be 68%. And now was that unusual? So it is within 2 standard deviations. So that is less than 59.1, as you can see here. And within 2 standard deviations is not unusual. So now again, how do I know it's not unusual? Because you can again open notes here and you could see that it is unusual, not unusual. You see, and you can also search. You can I don't see the search button here. There should be some, but I don't find it. It's all right. But everybody can, oh, there it is on the bottom. Check this out. And they say unusual. And then of course it shows you, it will find unusual. You see? Now highlighting in this is not well defined. It's an old display. I set up my little isolation computer, and I'm using an old display here. I don't want to move everything from upstairs, not to expose my family. Anyway, it does not show colors very well. I'm sorry, but it should give you an idea what's involved in doing this work. Yes, and of course, what's the z-score? And now this is, if we're doing z-scores on this, we have the z-score tool. And again, anybody needs to try the z-score tool. The mean 64 inches, standard deviation 3 inches. So I'm typing 64, standard deviation 3. And what's the z-score of 58 inches? 58, and the z-score is -2. And so now if you're doing it on test, you might as well use the z-score formula. Again, could be found in the notes, and that is, doesn't take long to remember, because we look at the mean and we subtract what we see. I'm sorry, the other way around. So we get our value, and value is 58 minus 64, which is the mean, over standard deviation. We get -2. That means 2 standard deviations below. And now, how do you know all of that? Because in the lecture notes, all of that is spelled out. And so 2 standard deviations, and how many standard deviations you see, and examples, and again, all of this. So again, you could use it during tests. And what's the height of moon with z-score of 1? She's 1 standard deviation above, and which means above the mean, which is 64 plus standard deviation 3 is 67. So that's your height. Okay, well, wonderful. So what you can do, you can go through these homework problems and see how you can answer them, and go to solution manual. Now, when you see something like that, find the interpret mean and whatever, and standard deviation. Standard deviation is not on tests, but mean could be on test, but it will be easier numbers. So 163 plus 120 plus 108 plus 101 plus 101 divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so this is mean. Again, you could do it on a regular calculator, or it's easier to do it in Excel, and you can also do it using Excel formula. And so, like, you could say, you like, okay, here you can type numbers in Excel. Now, those formulas are shown in the lecture notes too. You don't have to do it, but I would certainly enjoy if you learn that and you can do it. You know, people use regular calculators, and now numbers will be easier. But anyway, average, and then you can find the mean. So the mean is 108, average of these numbers. Okay. Again, Might as well use Excel to answer a simple question as opposed to, try to type it in the calculator. But in the lecture notes, on the exam, I find the mean of not something like 2 plus 3 plus 6 plus 8 over 4, which could be done without even calculator. So I don't give those 3-digit numbers because people are stressed on exams and this is a lot of work. Well, again, I do have my office hours. They are Zoom office hours, so you can always toolbars on the way, sorry. Okay, here we are. You can go to here and click regardless of the day Zoom office hour. And now for that week, my all Zoom office hours are Zoom. So if you have questions, zoom in and I will help you with any additional questions that you may have. So keep working. If you have the scribblings, don't throw them away. Bring it to exam, and you will get the homework point based on this, or submission any other type of homework. So just to mention, you could download it and type in this document, and that works. Or you can do e-homework, and you can play with this. And so just open that homework and, use the buttons. So if you don't know how to, get more help, now let me open, see what other buttons are going to show. This question actually is not very rich on help buttons, but some questions are really awesome. Let's see what we have here. Yes, we do have, view an example, and it will kind of lead you through. So it's not a bad system. So you can do this, or you can do any mix of things that you find attractive for your work style, and everything will be combined and entered as your homework. Well, I will see you next class. We have exam next class. Be prepared for the exam. Ask me questions. Visit my Zoom office hour, and I'll have my real office hour already on Monday. So maybe stop by before you go to the exam. At least I hope. I feel pretty good. I still need to measure my temperature on Thursday morning, but I measured it today and it was normal, and I don't take any pain, don't have a temperature medication. So it seems like I'm on a good recovery track. So anyway, have a good rest of the class and stay in touch.